This is a Sports Catastrophe production.
Hey there, ho there. It's Jeff Cutter Diamond welcoming you to another Sports Catastrophe birthday boy. And the birthday boy for September 2nd is a former heavyweight champion of the world. And he owns dual citizenship. So he is maybe the second or third last British born heavyweight champion of the world. He's obviously the last Canadian citizen to be heavyweight champion of the world. Lennox Lewis. Lennox Lewis is an icon. He's 56. He has dual British and Canadian citizenship, and he's the high guy of the British Empire, the OBE, and he's got a Canadian thing, the Order of Canada. So Lewis was born to Jamaican parents in West Ham. He was only 10 pounds, 10 ounces when he was born. Wow. Lewis and his mother moved to Kitchener at the age of 12. And he would attend Cameron Heights Collegiate for high school, which he was good in football, soccer, and basketball. Cameron Heights is near downtown Kitchener. Like, you easily can get to Kitchener Collegiate through KCI. But anyway, yeah. It's amazing. He actually got Cameron Heights to win the Ontario Provincial Basketball Championship in 1983, which was weird. I thought he played for Eastwood. But anyway, yeah. Because Lennox allegedly played in the junior football championship title match in 1981 against Waterloo Oxford, my alma mater. Anyway, Lewis decided his favorite sport was boxing. He was a dominant amateur boxer and actually won the Junior World Championships in 1983. He was 18 when he went to the LA Summer Olympics in 84 in the super heavyweight division. He was actually ranked number 6. Unfortunately, he would lose in the quarters to Tyrell Biggs of the U.S., who won the gold medal. Despite being 6'5" and having a good punch, he was told, his coaches said they had to pressure him to convert size and raw talent into aggression. Lewis decided to wait to turn professional until after the next Olympics in Seoul. He won the Commonwealth Games in 86, but lost the 87 Pan American final to Cuban Jorge Luis Gonzalez, basically due to international things, because 3 judges from Spanish-speaking countries gave Gonzalez the win. He beat Gonzalez for the North American amateur title 8 days later. Anyway, he would travel to Seoul, Korea for the 88 Olympics to achieve this goal. He actually stopped Riddick Bowe, who was a legendary American boxer of his own right, with a second round referee stoppage. A lot of people said it was kind of controversial in a sense, but I think Lewis probably would have won. Lewis became the first super heavyweight gold medalist to become world heavyweight champion as a professional, which was weird. Lewis was Canada's flag bearer at the closing ceremonies, and he was the first Canadian since Horace Lefty Gwynn in 1932 to win gold. Lewis had an amateur record of 85-9. HBL said he was 75-7. So anyway, a lot of promoters were approaching Lennox Lewis. So he declared himself a professional and actually moved back to England, which kind of sucks in a sense. He claimed to be considered British, but he's a Canadian at heart in Britain for convenience. But Lennox Lewis would later go on to say that when I turned pro, I went to the UK to pursue my career. The infrastructure to develop boxers wasn't in Canada then. Yeah, kind of. The Vanderpools would deal with that later. Anyway, Lewis sided with Frank Maloney, who I believe turned gay and changed himself to a woman at one time. Yeah, Kelly Maloney. That was weird. Frank Maloney turning into a female. But anyway, he would knock out journeymen and all that, do well. He won the European heavyweight bout in 1990 against J.M. Genet of France. And then he took care of the British title, beating Gary Mason, and won the Commonwealth title against Derek Williams. Lewis was a top 5 world heavyweight, and he would beat Tyrell Biggs. Kind of a revenge for that 84 Olympic gold medal, that Olympic loss. Mike Weaver, who was the WBA heavyweight champion once upon a time, and a former cruiserweight title holder, Glenn McCrory. On Halloween Day 1992, Lennox Lewis beat fellow Canadian Razor Ruddock for the number one contendership in the WBC rankings. It was impressive. That meant that Lewis was the mandatory challenger for Bo's heavyweight belt. However, Bo decided to throw his WBC title belt in a garbage can, relinquishing it to avoid a match against Lewis. The WBC then basically declared Lennox as champion, making him the first world heavyweight title holder from Britain in the 20th century. Lewis would defend the belt 3 times, taking down Tony Tucker, Frank Bruno, and Phil Jackson. Not that Phil Jackson. Unfortunately, he shockingly lost in Wembley Stadium to Oliver McCall. It was amazing. Unfortunately, the referee thought that Lewis couldn't continue after being knocked down at the count of 6, but he stumbled forward into the referee. So it was not too good, all that. Lewis decided to have a new trainer, and the renowned trainer, Emmanuel Stewart, would help him. Strangely enough, he was McCall's trainer. Stewart wanted to fight for him, not McCall. Weird. Yeah. And, Lennox was the number one contender in WBC, but the WBC shocked him by giving Mike Tyson the first chance at the title, won by Frank Bruno from Oliver McCall. Frank Bruno wasn't really that good. Lewis sued to force Tyson to make a mandatory defense of the WBC title against him. Lewis was offered $13.5 million guaranteed to fight Tyson to settle the lawsuit, but turned it down. Would have been the highest fight purse to date. However, Lewis did accept $4 million from Don King to allow Tyson to fight Bruce Seldon instead, with a guarantee that if Tyson beat Seldon, he would have to fight Lewis next. And Seldon didn't give him much of a fight. Tyson would relinquish the WBC title to get his chance at defender, the real deal Holyfield. So Lewis and McCall would have to fight for the WBC belt in Las Vegas. It was a rematch. Unfortunately, for some odd reason, Oliver McCall was not really that good. In the 4th round, he started pouting in the ring, and it was like, what the heck is going on here? Lewis was the title holder. Lewis looked good, and then he would face Holyfield, who was a WBA and IBF champion in New York City, which was a heavyweight unification belt. The belt was declared a tie to some controversy. And Eugenia Williams, who scored the fight in Holyfield's favor, said that Lennox landed fewer punches than Holyfield. And she also made the excuse that she was blocked out of her line of sight was blocked off, that she didn't know which fighter was which. In fact, they managed to have a rematch in November of 1999. However, Lennox was the undisputed heavyweight champion, winning unanimously. So Lennox would be doing that well. He would defend against John Ruiz, Michael Grant, Francois Bova, and even David Tua. Sadly, though, Lennox was shocked by 20-1 underdog Hasim Rahman in South Africa. The bout took place at 5 p.m. local time, in order to accommodate HBO's U.S.-based audience. Lennox shockingly lost. It was unbelievable. One of the biggest heavyweight upsets of all time. A lot of people blame Lennox Lewis's training regime, that basically he spent more time dealing with the Ocean's 11 film than everything else, than boxing. Lewis wanted a rematch with Rahman. Don King said no, Rahman should fight someone else, but Lennox took Rahman to court to have the rematch clause in their contract, order to be honored, and it did. In fact, on ESPN's Up Close, the fighters got in a brawl, Rodman and Lewis, similar to Ali and Frazier, which did one in front of Howard Cosell. However, Lennox would KO Rodman in the 4th round and get his title back. Lewis would face Tyson. All that. They did have a fight at a press conference, but it was actually set up that way. In June of 2002, he would defend his title against Tyson. Ticket prices were as high as $2,400 American. They still got 15,000 people at Memphis's Pyramid Arena. Tyson had to give Lewis $335,000 for fighting him at the news conference announcing the fight. Las Vegas was supposed to get the fight in April 2002, but because of Tyson's license problems because of his fighting of Holyfield, Memphis decided to fight it. Tyson seemed to be sluggish by the end of the 7th round, and Lennox easily knocked him out. It was actually the highest grossing event in pay-per-view history, generating over $106 million, until it was surpassed by De La Hoya Mayweather in 2007. Lewis vacated the IBF title because he didn't want to face Chris Bird. Lennox would sue Don King for a big chunk of cash, claiming that King used threats and bribery to have Tyson pull out of a rematch with Lewis. All that. Lewis would fight Canadian Kirk Johnson, but Johnson ended up suffering an injury, so Lewis would have to fight Vitaly Klitschko, who was an icon. June 21st. I think it did Klitschko as a birthday boy. Lewis ended up TKOing Klitschko, which was weird. Klitschko had a chance to win the match, but he lost because of the severe cut. 7 million people watched it live on HBO's World Championship Boxing. Klitschko needed 60 stitches and all that. Lewis was to face Klitschko in a rematch, but he changed his mind. Klitschko defeated Kirk Johnson, facing a mandatory rematch with Lewis. But Lewis would retire in February 2004 to pursue other interests and vacated the title. And he didn't return to the ring. He was 41, 2-1 in his pro career with 32 KOs. It was amazing. All that. Classic upright boxer. I mean, he had a reach of almost 7 feet or 84 inches. Lennox became the 7th Olympic gold medalist to become world heavyweight champion after Floyd Patterson, Muhammad Ali, Joe Frazier, George Foreman, Leon Spinks, and Michael Spinks. He is the only boxer to represent Canada at the Summer Games and win a professional world title. So, it was amazing. In fact, Lewis's standing among people increased since his retirement. He's the last real undisputed heavyweight champion. Lennox became one of only 2 boxers in history, and the first since Ken Norton in 1978 to be given the World Heavyweight Championship without actually winning a championship belt because of what Riddick Bowe did. All that. In 2001, Lewis became the 4th boxer after Ali, Holyfield, and even Michael Moore to have the World Heavyweight Championship on 3 occasions. Lewis did pretty well. His 3 reigns tallied more than 8 years combined, which ranks as the 4th longest cumulative time spent as World Heavyweight Champion, which is pretty good. They named him the 2nd greatest British fighter of all time. I wonder who he put. Who BoxRec said. I don't know who they would put. 2018 Boxing News made him the 3rd greatest heavyweight behind Ali and Joe Louis. Fair enough. So yeah. Good times by all. So he got into Canada's Sports Hall of Fame and the International Boxing Hall of Fame. He was in Ocean's 11. And Lennox Lewis almost went to World Wrestling Entertainment. He did take part in 1992 of bringing the British flag out when the British Bulldog faced Bret Hart for the Intercontinental belt at SummerSlam '92 in Wembley. It was amazing. He actually ended up fourth on NBC Celebrity Apprentice in 2008. And is an honorary doctorate from Wilfrid Laurier. Fuck that. So anyway, Lewis moved to Miami after retiring with his wife Violet Chain, a former Miss Jamaica runner-up, and has 3 children. All that. So yeah, so his only 2 losses were to Raw Min and Oliver McCall. That is just amazing what he did. He actually fought, interesting. He actually fought 2 matches in Kitchener. He fought Mike Acey, July 1990 at the Superstars nightclub, and he TKO'd Greg Goro at the Memorial Auditorium in Kitchener. Wow, I did not know that. He had 2 fights in Kitchener. Nice. Wish I could see them, but obviously it'll be hard pressed to find. But hey, you know what? Anything's possible. Don't you agree? Lennox Lewis was great. I just wish he stayed Canadian for life. You know, Canadians really don't have many world heavyweight boxers to hold their hat on, and England does. Whatever. That's the way it goes. Anyway, I'm Jeff Diamond. I do.